Hey, migraines and headaches and, well, gluten sensitivity and histamine. A lot of you all know that I'm pretty passionate about histamine, probably because I've been struggling personally with that for, well, decades. But when I'm reading research and I find something new and related, uh, I want to share it with you all. And today's paper that I'm sharing with you is actually from Dr. Green, who's on the research team at Strategene and Seeking Health. So, anytime you eat something, there's a risk that it's going to do something to your body. Either you'll feel great from it, or you'll feel worse from it, or you might feel nothing. And food should leave you energized. You should actually feel energy from eating your food or drink rather than feeling tired or any other type of emotion like irritable or cranky or sad. So if you're having any type of symptom after eating or drinking, you need to step back and say, what in the hell did I just put in my body? And why is it doing this? And did I have too much of it? Or what else is going on? And you should journal it. Either you journal it in your head, which is least effective, but it's fast, or you actually write it down. And with our phones these days, there's really no excuse to why you can't keep record of what you're putting in your mouth. And for me, I don't like keeping record. I like just going back after some time and realizing, all right, I have been eating, it's like I have a headache. And why do I have a headache? Because I usually don't get headaches. And I look back over the record of what I ate over these last few days, and I was like, oh, cow dairy. I've been eating way too much cheese lately and too much cow dairy and cheese. That has been a new factor for me, and that's what's triggering it. But today, I want to share what this research paper is talking about, and specifically gluten. And you don't have to be celiac, folks, in order to have issues from celiac. And it really doesn't have to be gluten either. It can be any type of food or drink that triggers a histamine release or contains higher levels of histamine. So when I share you this paper, don't think of it's like, oh, I'm not celiac, therefore this is not relevant to me. I want you to frame it as, oh, high levels of histamine are associated with migraines, and a little bit less histamine is associated with bad headaches. And so what foods or drinks am I consuming personally that cause these symptoms for me? So if I eat gluten, yes, I'll get headaches. I won't get migraines from gluten. In fact, I don't think I've ever had a migraine in my life, thankfully. But the foods that do that for me, alcohol, cow dairy, especially cheese, and higher histamine foods. Red wine, oh my God, it's game over. So I'm going to share you this paper right now. And so if you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in below. And I've got my chat open here for you. It looks like you all are actively commenting already. So welcome. Awesome to see you. And so today I'm going to be more organized, and I've prepared a slide deck so I will be able to not lose track and stay focused. So I'll get to your questions as they, as we go here in a second. In fact, I'm going to look at them now in case I need to. Hey, Leah, you're welcome. Hey, living TBI, awesome. Long Island. Yes, Daniela, you're so excited. Perfect. Your daughter has histamine issues, gluten sensitivity, and constant migraines. Well, you will be happy to know that they are directly linked. And Doran, the same. So, and I also want to back up and say not everything is histamine, even though I talk about it all the time. So migraines are associated with histamine, but that doesn't mean it's the only factor. Okay. So as we look into this paper here, I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. Okay. So this is the paper here, and I've linked to the paper below in the comment section or in the description section of the video. So the research, the links to the product, recommendations are in the description below. So associations between migraine, celiac disease, non-celiac gluten sensitivity, meaning you do not have to have the genetics in order, for celiac to struggle from eating gluten. I am not celiac. I don't have celiac genes, but I am sensitive to gluten. And wheat is sprayed with Roundup heavily, and Roundup kills our good bacteria in our gut, especially the Bifidobacter bacteria, which is one reason why I wonder if the things like probiotic histaminics or probiotics in general, especially Bifidobacter, are really, really helping people with digestive issues just because of the prevalence of Roundup in our foods. But I digress. So these things, migraines, celiac disease, and gluten sensitivity, and the activity of diamine oxidase. What is diamine oxidase? Diamine oxidase is a gene. And it's a very important gene in your body. And this gene is one of the super 7 in dirty genes. So right here, DAO, chapter 7, oversensitivity to foods. All right. So DAO made it to the book, Dirty Genes. And keep in mind, there's 18,000 other genes. And I happened to pick DAO. And I picked DAO because it is so prevalent in the population to be born problematic, meaning it doesn't work very well. And even if it's not genetically polymorphic or having a mutation, it can get problematic even without a genetic mutation. So you can be born with a good DAO gene, and then throughout your life, your DAO gene can get dirty through medications, lifestyle, just flat out overconsumptions of foods and so on. And so I'll be showing you that here in a second. But I want to state that this DAO gene is extremely important, and it's very, very common in the population to have a genetic variation which reduces its effectiveness in order to degrade histamine. Okay? So right here, recent reports reveal a close relationship between migraine and gut issues. So let's stop there. If you have gut issues, no, you have migraines, possibly. And if you have migraines, you most likely have gut issues. They are linked forward and backwards. So if you're struggling with migraines, you got to look at your gut. And the food that you're putting in there is going to make your migraines trigger, or it's going to make your migraines go away. And this particular gene, diamine oxidase, is really, really associated with migraines and histamine levels. And if you can clean it up and make it work better, let's hope that your migraines go away. And I'm pretty confident they will. So gluten aggravates migraine attacks. So if you are wheat-free, meaning you do not eat wheat at all, but you continue to eat gluten, from other sources, barley, amaranth, oats. I'm not a gluten expert like Dr. Peter Osborne, but there's gluten in all sorts of different grains. And if you are not eliminating gluten completely from all these other grains, then your migraines are going to be hitting you. And I remember when I was quote unquote gluten-free years ago, I declared myself gluten-free to my friends, and they came over and I was drinking a beer. And they're like, Ben, I thought you're gluten-free. Yeah, I am. And I'm drinking a beer. I was like, well, isn't there gluten in that beer? I was like, just a little. But that just a little was problematic for me. I had a problem on the inside of my ankle for over 25 years. And doctors diagnosed it as a really bad fungus. It looked like horrible athlete's foot, but it was just on the inside of my foot underneath my ankle. I could put all sorts of antifungals on there, didn't touch it. And they're like, oh, it's just a really bad case. I was like, well, why doesn't it spread to the rest of my foot? Why doesn't it spread anywhere else? Why don't I have fungus anywhere else in my body? And when I eliminated wheat, it got better. But when I went gluten-free and I stuck to it 100%, it cleared up, and it's been gone ever since. So do not tell me that you're gluten-free if you are eating gluten sometimes, because gluten-free is gluten-free, and it's like saying that you're kind of pregnant. Sorry, you're pregnant. So you're either pregnant or you're not. You're gluten-free or you're not. So gluten aggravates migraine attacks. Another food component which can induce migraine headaches is histamine. So this goes back to what I was sharing with you earlier. If we're talking about gluten here, the researchers are talking about gluten, but another food component, i.e. food generally speaking, and that should include drinks, can induce migraine headaches is histamine. Histamine is found where? Histamine is found in leftovers, fish, fermented foods, which are all the rage now. Sauerkraut and kombucha and, just tons of stuff. And then you've got aged foods. Cheeses are notorious. The older the cheese, the higher the histamine content. And then you have certain fruits, which are histamine liberators or contain histamine. We've got bananas in there. We've got strawberries, and pineapples, citrus in general. And then you've got drinks, alcohol, especially red wine. And then you have, champagne, notorious. Okay. So anything that has histamine in it, regardless if it's gluten or not, because gluten causes a histamine reaction because you're having an immune response to that gluten, or you're just having a response to the higher amounts of histamine that is found in the food or drink that is triggering your migraines. Okay. And why is that happening? That's happening because the diamine oxidase gene, so DAO, diamine oxidase is an enzyme which degrades histamine. Reduced activity of DAO means reduced histamine degradation, which can cause histamine buildup and lead to various symptoms, including headaches and migraines. Okay, so very, very important point. And I think this is a bit too enlarged. Let me scroll down. There it is. So I'm going to move my mug up here. All right. So the conclusion, 9 out of 10 patients with non-celiac gluten sensitivity belong to the decreased functioning DAO enzyme. So 90% of people in this group, all right, they had a DAO enzyme that was not functioning very well, which then translated to higher histamine levels, which then translated to migraines and headaches. So there's a strong relationship between reduced serum DAO activity and non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So patients with decreased functioning serum DAO activity were more severely impacted by migraine than those with normal DAO activity. I failed to highlight that. Okay. Patients with decreased serum activity were more severely impacted by migraine than those with DAO activity. Okay. Very significant find. So let's go back and look at your questions from hearing this. Oh, you all are active. Aloha. Oh, I wish I was in Hawaii. Leah, migraines you have come on with barometric pressure changes. Yep. Or around the time of the month. Why? Estrogen. Estrogen promotes the release of histamine. So your body, if you are consuming histamine or you are consuming foods that trigger histamine in your body, like gluten, or you're drinking wine or what have you, that's a problem. But barometric pressure is also associated with high levels of histamine, and cycle changes are associated with higher levels of estrogen, especially if you struggle from PMS. And estrogen and histamine are all related in terms of, well, they're directly associated with each other. And so high estrogen is high histamine, which then goes to headaches. So ladies, you got to evaluate your estrogen levels with your doctor and work on your metabolism of your estrogens. Now imagine if you have barometric pressure changes and you're on an airplane and you drink red wine. That's a recipe for disaster. You do have histamine when you eat dairy or drink wine. Yep, and then you can't breathe. Exactly. Exercise-induced asthma is a high histamine problem. Asthma generally is a high histamine problem. So and there's other things that are factors with that, but just breathing issues in general, well, asthma is a histamine problem, but not only. There's other factors there too, especially glutathione. Lisa, you need to get better at noticing changes in your body and health instead of waiting until you have more severe symptoms. Boy, isn't that the truth? I think we're all in that camp, which is exactly why I wrote Dirty Genes instead of my publisher wanted to call it the 7 deadly genes. And that's not accurate. So dirty genes means we all make lifestyle choices every single moment in our life. Like everything that we do is a choice. And if we choose to consume gluten and then we get a symptom from that, then we need to step back and say, am I okay with that symptom of a runny nose, congestion, insomnia, irritability, headaches, nosebleeds, migraines? Well, if I'm okay with that because I really want to eat that or drink that, that's cool. That's your choice. However, if your headache and migraine and difficulty falling asleep is affecting your work, or it's affecting your marriage, or it's affecting something else, then we need to fix that. And the health of you is very important as well, because, well, if you die early, that sucks, and it can really hurt the loved ones that you leave behind. But yeah, we all are needing to step back and tune in. I talk about it in Dirty Genes a lot, that we need to tune in. Literally, I say those 2 words. We need to tune in to how we feel before we do something, or we tune in to feel how we are doing after we do something. So I just shared a video, not too long ago. I was working out, and I started noticing my right ear was getting fluid in it, and that's high histamine, and working out makes higher histamine. So I tuned into my body. It's like, why is my ear getting full of fluid? Oh, I'm exercising, and fluid in the ear is histamine. It's like, okay, so I'm going to take this histamine supplement. It went away. So if you put those things in together, you can address things. Leah, your Histamine Block Plus was recommended by Dr. Scouron. Oh, hey, Jared, great guy. To help your son, Dylan. When he has any candy or sugar, he becomes extremely emotional and loses self-control. So again, thank you very much. Yeah, that's a whole nother. You're welcome, first of all, but that's a loaded issue right there in terms of sugar and mood issues. Kaloa, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Your histamine intolerance worsened from low-dose birth control. He was on for 6 months. Yep. You get migraines. Cystic acne went away when you went gluten-free. Awesome. Chocolate and dairy. Thank you. Yeah, chocolate is a big histamine problem. You were eating Candace was eating hot sauce with a preservative and having asthma every day. You found a cleaner hot sauce and no inhaler. That's beautiful. Well done. Daniela, you got strategy for your older kid learning so much. Well, the test with swab's going to come back. Yeah, they'll come back. It takes our lab sometimes longer than usual. I don't know why, but 4 to 6 weeks is the typical. Yeah. All right. So let's look at some genetics, shall we? So in summary, if you have a specific gene, diamine oxidase, aka DAO, if it's not working very well, you are increased susceptibility to migraines. Okay. And that has to do with this statement right here. Patients with decreased serum DAO activity were more severely impacted by migraine than those with normal DAO activity. All right. So that's significant. Now let's look at the genes involved. Let's zoom out. So we got 2 people here, folks, and I'm going to ask you a question. We got 2 people. Person A, okay, we got person A, and we got person B. And here are their genes. Here's their DAO enzyme here for person A, and here's the DAO enzyme for person B. And if you look at this graph to understand what's going on, or this symbol, slow is this box, that's purple. So this DAO enzyme is slow. Okay. Well, that's pretty horrible writing, but that's pretty much sums it up. I write like that with a pencil. Okay, so this enzyme is slow, meaning it was born slow. This one, right, where it says gene enzyme info, checked, but there was no genetic variation found. Okay, so there is no SNP here. So this is normal. We're just going to write norm. Okay, this DAO enzyme is born normal function, and this enzyme is born, DAO is born with a slower function, meaning it does not work very well. So which person is more susceptible to having migraine headaches from consuming gluten or from eating higher histamine foods or drinks generally? Person A or person B? Which person, from looking at these two, is more susceptible to having migraines from histamine? And there is a delay at times, so just go ahead and share your comments below, and I'm going to see what you all think. Type it in the comments below. Person A or person B? Lisa says you can't tell. Well, you know my work too well, Lisa. Now, if we're just looking at purely a genetic function, just genetically, okay, not epigenetically, just genetically, which person is more susceptible to having migraines associated with histamine from a poor functioning, from a poor functioning DAO enzyme? Okay. Everyone's saying person B. Excellent. Not one person has said person A. Yeah, I agree with you. So if you are born with a slower DAO enzyme, then that is going to lead to reduced function of the DAO enzyme, which is going to lead to what? Higher levels of histamine. So your histamine levels will increase because the DAO enzyme isn't functioning. So if this enzyme isn't functioning, then the histamine is butting its head, right? It can't get through the DAO. It can't convert. But on this side, the histamine can just slide right through the DAO enzyme because it's functioning well. And what did the research paper say? Research paper said patients with decreased serum DAO activity were more severely impacted by migraine. Why? Because reduced activity of DAO means reduced histamine degradation, which can cause histamine buildup, leading to various symptoms, including headaches and migraines. Okay, so we have got person A more tolerant to these things, and person B less tolerant. So person B is my wife, by the way. I've got permission to share that with you all. But Nadia is more susceptible to drinking alcohol. She's what you would call a cheap date, if we're going to go there. So she would have a sip of wine, and literally within 60 seconds or 120 seconds, 1 to 2 minutes, she would say, "Oh, there go my legs." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "My legs, they just feel all warm and tingly and they're just relaxed and kind of gone." I was like, wow, that was quick. And so this is my wife's ability to metabolize histamine in wine. It's terrible. So do we drink wine in our house? No, not really. I mean, very rarely. Once a year, maybe, and my wife will put about this much in her glass, and then she'll take a histamine block to help her out. So, okay. So there's lifestyle factors also go into play here. So as you can see, as I believe it was Lori who said it, no, Lisa, you can't tell from genes. And I believe what Lisa was referring to is this stuff, okay, right? This is the epigenetic control points of how genes function. So just because this individual has a normal DAO genetically, epigenetically, look what the purple means. Purple means decreased activity. See this? Decreased activity on the gene. Okay? So if you have a decrease, if something decreases the activity on the gene and the enzyme, then that gene or enzyme is not going to work very well, just like this genetic variation over here. So if this person, they're all excited because like, wow, I don't have genetic variation in my DAO enzyme, I'm going to run out and drink some wine. Well, they just went to the doctor 2 months ago and they found out they have diabetes type 2, and they will put on metformin. So now they've been taking metformin. They've been kind of having some loose stools, not feeling very well. And, it's like, doc, I think metformin is causing some side effects. All that happens, loose stool, diarrhea happens with metformin. It's okay. Just let it go. You'll probably, grow out of it or what have you, get used to it. And then that person has a glass of wine that night. And man, migraine triggers, diarrhea is worse. They feel awful. And then next day, they fly to Hawaii and they're excited. They got some pineapple salad. And man, they feel awful again. Like, what the hell's going on? I used to eat pineapple, no problem. Well, now they're lost. And they go to the doctor. It's like, doctor, I'm getting headaches and migraines all the time. I got loose stools. And, I used to not even get any of these things. It's the lifestyle factors, drugs, medications, foods, all these things are playing a big role in how your genes function, i.e. dirty genes. So metformin is an issue. Gut inflammation. Why? The DAO enzyme lives in the small intestine. So Crohn's, celiac, these things will destroy the lining of the small intestine, and the small intestine is where the DAO enzyme lives. And if you remove the house for the DAO enzyme, well, there's no residence taking place there, and the DAO enzyme isn't going to work. So you have to make sure the gut inflammation is down, okay? And gut inflammation is triggered by all sorts of things. Alcohol, okay? Another one, acetaldehyde, yeast overgrowth. So, we talked about the irritability of the kid from the sugar and candies. We see all the time where, from kids, if it's not just a blood sugar issue, it's a yeast overgrowth issue, and adults too. If you are eating a huge amount, or just, you're put on antibiotics even, and then you got this overgrowth of yeast in your digestive system, and then you consume sugar, that those yeast will convert that alcohol, or from that, they'll convert the sugar into just whatever. It'll produce more alcohol, and then that'll convert to acetaldehyde, and then that will slow down the degradation of your histamine, which will cause migraines and headaches and irritability and so on. Okay, so this is very important, so that you look at the lifestyle factors, which is discussed in Dirty Genes. Okay, so if you want to support your DAO enzyme, then you can remove, ideally, these lifestyle factors. You support the gut inflammation. You remove the offending factors. You talk with your doctor about represcribing a different medication for you if metformin is problematic. You cut the alcohol out, or at least cut it way back, and you evaluate to see if you have yeast overgrowth, or you just empirically go after it and get rid of it, taking probiotics and Saccharomyces, or maybe eat some more garlic and what have you. But just simply reducing your sugar consumption, your carbohydrate consumption, and your alcohol consumption will reduce the food for the yeast, and it will die off, especially if you're combining that with probiotics, and the probiotics will crowd out the yeast and kill it, and then allow your DAO enzyme to function, even if it's genetically slower, like in this person here, okay? So you've got to be able to keep in mind that you've got to put the work in to clean this up, and then as you do that, you will feel better, and you'll be more tolerant to various foods and drinks, and your migraines will hopefully go away. Now, as you're working on those things, being able to circumvent the problem is always handy. So by taking a DAO enzyme, if you're unable to make the enzyme, then what can you do? You can take the enzyme. So Histamine Block actually provides the DAO enzyme directly. So There is not a vegetarian source of this. This does come from pig. Okay, so in pigs, they've done research on pigs actually, and pigs don't get seasick. So, and they don't get seasick because they produce a huge amount of DAO enzyme, and which is why the ingredient manufacturers use pig to source the raw material. And so this is what we use. And there's another DAO on the market, but it had the other ingredients list. We used to use it actually, but the other ingredients, this stuff was full of things which I did not like in there. I mean, it was not good. I didn't like how dirty it was. So it worked, but it wasn't as clean. And actually ours is now looking to be stronger than that one, according to these new batch testings that we're doing. So anytime you are consuming alcohol or eating higher histamine foods or drinks, or you accidentally ingest or purposely ingest gluten or other offending foods, and you start feeling, my head's starting to hurt, take a histamine block. Okay, take it, maybe take 1 to 2, and that can help, hopefully, and support healthy histamine levels. So if you support healthy histamine levels, what does that do? If migraines are associated with high histamine and you're taking a DAO enzyme to metabolize histamine, well, that threshold to trigger the migraine headache is down and well, actually raises, and you're not going to get that headache anymore. Okay, that's the theory. So by taking histamine block, you are supporting healthy histamine levels, and healthy histamine levels are not associated with migraine or headache. They're actually associated with a reduction in their occurrence. Okay, so here's some reviews from people. So I'm gonna just zoom in this one on full so you can read, and I included a kind of a negative one for you all to see this. So Linda, she had food triggered migraines, vanished. Okay, and I was very curious about this. She takes 2 capsules every morning without fail, and she's good for the day. And so that tells me that if she is taking 2 capsules of histamine block first thing in the morning, there might be some gut associated producing bacteria in her gut. So she has probably high histamine producing bacteria in her digestive tract. And then she eats food that has high histamine, and then that makes it even worse. So her cup is really full, okay? And so she needs to go to the doctor, and she needs to do a digestive test to look for things like Blastocystis hominis, or Lactobacillus fermentum, or Lactobacillus bulgaricus, or other things. Sorry, I'm texting my wife. So she needs to check her gut, bottom line. Okay, so she takes 2 capsules every morning without fail, and she's good for the day. I think that here's a trick that I shared with my customer support team last week. So I had a meeting with Bobby, who heads up the customer support team at Seeking Health, and I said, look, so many people have histamine issues. It's such a broad array of symptoms that people don't know if their symptom is associated with histamine or not. So I really want you all to be able to figure out if it's histamine or not. So what I've been recommending is to suggest histamine block, and you can, I recommend taking this away from food at first. I know if you read suggested use says take 1 capsule or more, take 1 capsule no more than 15 minutes before consumption of histamine-rich foods, it should say, or drinks. However, I am suggesting that you take it away from food like Linda does. So Linda takes 2 capsules every morning without fail. She's good for the entire day. So that's just really interesting to me. So try it and see if you feel better. You need to tune in. First, realize, how am I feeling right now? Do I have any headaches? Has my mood, am I a little cranky? Did I not fall asleep well last night? You know, am I starting, you know, in my cycle where PMS is going to be a factor, you know, and so on. Am I really hot and sweaty? Is my heart rate faster? So take 2 histamine block or 1 and see how you feel. And you should notice probably some changes within about 5 minutes or so. Histamine is one of those things that works really quickly. And if you support healthy histamine levels, you should notice the improvements very quickly. So again, take 1 to 2 capsules of histamine block and as a test to see how you feel. And then also, histamine increases alertness and its degree in your head. So a headache is high levels of histamine, which is high, and histamine is an excitatory neurotransmitter. So if you have a little bit of an excitatory neurotransmitter in your brain, then you're focused and alert, and you're able to, you know, have conversations, and everything's fine. Your moods are good. You're happy. And if you have a bit more, now you're a little bit agitated. You want the person to hurry up, you know, get done with your point. If you have a little bit more, you might have a little bit of a headache, and you have a little bit more of an attitude. You're a little bit more grumpy. Somebody cuts you off on the road and you just lose it. And if you have more histamine in your brain, now that headache is pretty significant. And if you have more, you have migraine. Okay. So, and you get even more than that, well, I don't know. It could be associated with seizure. I need to look at that evidence. I'm not sure if it is or not. But then you also have moods. You have, you know, depression is going to be possibly low histamine, where you got full on anxiety, irritability, anxiousness that's associated with high levels of histamine, and difficulty falling asleep. So you could try taking 1 to 2 histamine blocks before bed. And these capsules are really small. I mean, I have big hands, but these capsules are tiny. Okay. Not tiny, but they're small. So they're easy to swallow. So they're safe for kids 4 and up, safe for breastfeeding, and pregnancy. Well, I'd say you got to leave it up to your doctor. But your placenta naturally makes the DAO enzyme in high amounts. All right, let's look at another review here. All right, Jen, she says it takes the edge off. Her young daughter has struggled with headaches and a lot of histamine issues. She takes half a capsule before food, and it has really helped her red cheeks and her headaches, and it can tolerate more foods in her diet. Okay, awesome. And look, it says right here, while we continue to work on her infections. Good. So histamine block is one of those things that supports your body's ability to metabolize histamine and get to the healthy levels while you are working on talking with your doctor about switching off of metformin to another medication, or while you're addressing gut inflammation, or while you're trying to identify the foods that are triggering histamine, you know, or while you're trying to change the foods that you're eating. And now and then, every now and then, look, you're just going to have some alcohol, or you're going to have some food. It was my birthday not too long ago, and I went out to a restaurant with my family, and I had gluten, and I never eat gluten. I'm really cautious about it. I didn't have any histamine block with me. I should have brought it. I didn't, but I didn't react. And I was really happy about that, because I've been so diligent, and I've been really good about probiotics, and my histamine levels are good, and my gut probably doesn't have that Blastocystis hominis in there like it used to. Okay. So now here's another one from Ariel. Okay. It's hard to tell. And she gets bad headaches and migraines when she eats certain kind of foods. She's got some, but minimal good results when she takes this product and Sulfide X. And she's wondering if she should try taking more than 1 of the histamine block capsules. So there's a lot of factors here, right? So if you're having a meal with people you don't like in an environment with, say, high EMF or Wi-Fi, or using Bluetooth devices, all these increase mast cells release of histamine. So it could be your environment. So you could be, you know, mad at somebody. You could have had a bad night's sleep. You could be dehydrated, low in electrolytes. It could be around your cycle. Your estrogen levels could be higher. You could be significantly overweight, and fat produces more of the harmful estrogen. And then so your fat, your adipose cells are actually producing more estrogen, which makes you release more estrogen, release more histamine. And so it's a bunch of predisposing factors. It's not just the food and drink that you eat. So, you're stressed out, your gut can be inflamed, the food that you're eating that evening. So you could be having a salad with balsamic vinegar, which is the worst for histamine reactions. And so get this, that night when I had my birthday and I had the calamari, was like, God, it's so good. And they just crusted the calamari. It wasn't like full gluten all over it, but just a little bit, light crust, but still it wasn't 100% gluten free, but I ate it. And, but then I also had balsamic vinegar on my salad. I still didn't react. Balsamic vinegar used to just send me through the roof. I mean, just touching balsamic vinegar to my tongue, balsamic dressing, salad dressing, just touching it would make it red. So if you get a red tip tongue, that could be a histamine response too. Okay. So a lot of factors at play. So you can't rely just on one supplement. You have to step back and look at the lifestyle factors. Okay. So I want you looking at these things. I want you looking at the gut inflammation and the medications and the alcohols and the acetaldehyde from the yeast overgrowth. Okay. So I don't want you taking histamine block every single day of the rest of your life. I want you to step back and say, what the hell am I doing that's triggering more histamine? Use a histamine block to support your healthy histamine levels while you're working on these other things. And then when you purposely do decide to cheat and eat other foods, then you're not going to be getting those reactions. So you can get histamine block at seekinghealth.com. You can get it at Amazon if you like, but at Amazon you don't get the quantity discounts, whereas at Seeking Health you can get the 1-pack, 3-pack, and 6-pack and do bulk quantity discounts. International folks, so if you live overseas, we do have distributors in various countries: Australia, New Zealand, Poland, UK, Ireland, I think Japan, and so on, but various other countries. But iHerb is great. They don't have our full product line yet, but they're getting there. They loaded our Histamine Block Plus on this page, which isn't right. So there is no 60 count of histamine block. So this is getting fixed. So you have a 30 count, which is great for trying to see how it works for you. And then the 90 count is great because it's a money saver. And it's worth $1 a serving for when you have some alcohol and you're with friends and you're partying, or you don't want to have that headache or migraine. I think it's definitely worth $1. And we've only been on iHerb for just like 2 to 3 months, and we've already got 74 4.5 stars. So that's pretty cool. And if you like these pathways, if you want to know if your DAO enzyme is born slower and what lifestyle factors that you need to be working on, so you can share with your doctors, like, look, I have a born DAO that's slow. I want to work on these lifestyle factors as well. Then, you can get Strategene as well at Seeing Health. And right now it's $195, which is a hell of a deal. And then we have a list of health professionals that you can work with. So you just ask our teams, like, hey, I ordered Strategene. This thing is super dense. I need to work with a health professional. Help me out. And we can do that for you. Give you that list. All right, so I'm going to look back at some more questions for you. Traditional docs are clueless. A lot of them. So when I used to do the Seeking Health Educational Institute conferences, around the United States, we would attract over 350 doctors from all over the world. And it was pretty cool seeing those docs eagerly absorb this information and apply it in their clinics. So I stopped doing that for various reasons. Family was a big one, but I was really excited to see that they were so into it. So it's your demand, right? If doctors will learn, and histamine tolerance is skyrocketing, mast cell activation disorder is skyrocketing, this post-viral long haul symptoms, huge issue, and a lot of it is histamine. So it's a big issue. And so your demand and your problems are going to be driving the many health professionals to gain more education. And if they don't, then a lot of this chronic, so traditional doctors suck, most of them. They just suck flat out at chronic issues. Chronic lifestyle issues, they're garbage. Immediate urgent care, fixing broken arms and surgeries to fix, hernias and stuff, that's great. You don't want to be fixing your surgical issues. But I happened to I was driving to the mountain to ski with my boys yesterday, and 3 cars ahead of me, there was a head-on collision, and it was scary. So those folks needed primary traditional care. I was the only doctor on scene. I pulled over, I got out, and I attended to all the people who were hurt, just making sure that they stayed warm and kept them coherent, and make sure they didn't remove the stuff that was stuck on their legs so they would bleed more if they removed it, and prevent them from twisting and turning and moving quickly in case they blew out, cut their sciatic nerve or their main nerve in their back. I mean, it was crazy. 6 people are injured on that wreck. All of them. So drive safely. Daniela, you have a slow DAO. Histamine is no joke. You always thought it was so weird you couldn't tolerate alcohol at all. You never knew why until you discovered histamine issues in your kids. Man, I hear you. When I looked at my genetics and I realized that there was a reason why I felt the way I felt, it was so satisfying. It kind of sucked, honestly, knowing that I had these genetic issues, but at the same time, it gave me, I'm not so weird. All these people said, Dad, you're all these people, Dad, I have 3 kids, not all these people. My boys thought I was so nuts with Wi-Fi sensitivity. I could literally tell when Wi-Fi was turned on. It's like, who turned on the Wi-Fi in the house? And they'd all cower their heads. And I was like, Dad, how'd you know? It's like, I got a damn headache. I know how to fix that now. So look at this. Histamine right here, this particular gene, HRH1. This is a histamine receptor. And this gene is fast. So I am hypersensitive, hyper aware of higher levels of histamine in my brain. So I am hyper aware when Wi-Fi and EMF and Bluetooth is on, and if my histamine levels are imbalanced. And so understanding your genetics is a powerful way to understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And that's really important, to understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling so you don't feel so weird. I always felt so weird why I'm sensitive to EMF. Now I know. So I just got to keep my histamine levels at a healthy level. Reading comments. Daniela, you use the Histamine Block Plus. Should we add just Histamine Block as well? Histamine Block is great for testing to see if you have histamine-associated symptoms, because if those symptoms go reduce or you feel better, then it could be a DAO enzyme in your digestive system, and that kind of clues you into it's a digestive system issue. So I like Histamine Block alone as a test to see if it's a gut-related issue. And 90% of you, if not more, have gut-associated high histamine levels for various reasons. And so if you take 1 to 2 capsules of Histamine Block, not Histamine Block Plus, but Histamine Block, just DAO, you could be isolating and saying, I took those capsules, I literally feel no different at all, nothing. It's like, okay, then it's probably not a gut-associated issue if you take it on an empty stomach, right? So if you wake up in the morning and you feel fine, that's one thing. But if you you're going about your day and maybe somebody turns on the Wi-Fi, or you go to some other place and the Wi-Fi's on, you start getting a headache and you haven't eaten anything. You're starting to get a migraine. You haven't eaten anything, you haven't drunk anything, but you're starting to feel it come on, and you take 1 to 2 histamine block and it starts to get better, then that's a sign that says, wow, okay, I've got some bacteria or something in my digestive system that's pumping out histamine. Maybe it's just my immune system responding to, inflammation in my gut. Who knows? But if I take 1 to 2 histamine block and I feel better, I got to work on my gut. Histamine Block Plus supports the entire histamine pathway, regardless of where it is. So that is, you're not going to really know the source of the histamine, because Histamine Block Plus just is like full body support. Okay. So that does dovetail into, if histamine block doesn't work for you, then, and you still have histamine associated symptoms, then you go to the Histamine Block Plus. Histamine block provides twice the amount of DAO than Histamine Block Plus. So this provides 4.2 milligrams of DAO enzyme, and the Histamine Block Plus provides 2.1 milligrams. And you're like, well, why did you cut it in half? Well, it's because the synergy of all the other ingredients in Histamine Block Plus allow me to reduce the potency of the DAO enzyme. And if you need more DAO, you just take a histamine block with it. Okay. Plus the price point of Histamine Block Plus would have been through the roof. Kaloa, so sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. You don't get migraines, but you think it's all in your gut. Okay. Now, you should know the answer to this by now, right? And so I'd ask you, and I will ask you, I wish these comments would save when I publish the video, but regardless, I bet you know the answer now, Kaloa, right? So if you think they're all coming from your gut, well, take 1 to 2 of these away from food, and if your symptoms improve, there you go. You've answered, you've nailed it, right? And I'll talk about SIBO another day. Rocky, doesn't a histamine block have to get in the small intestine to degrade the capsule and then work? Yes, it does. It's true. It's amazingly fast how that happens. I mean, you take one of these capsules, you swallow it, it gets in the stomach, and then the acidity of the stomach just degrades that capsule really fast, and then it delivers it into the small intestine, and then the DAO works, and it's just eating all that histamine right away. I mean, it's really unreal how fast this works. It's almost unbelievable, but it happens over and over again. People will take the Histamine Block Plus, and literally 5 minutes later, they're like, damn, my nose has already stopped running, or my skin isn't as itchy, or my eyes aren't as red, or something. It's unreal. So when you understand the biochemistry of the human body, and you know which genes are affected, and you hit it or support it rather, with the right targeted nutrients, which was why we call it Seeking Health Targeted Support, because we target the underlying problem, literally target it, then you get results. And that's why Seeking Health products work so damn well. Is high histamine level related to melasma? I don't know. I heard it was associated with vitamin B6 years ago in school, but I haven't looked since. I will take a look at that. I'm going to write it down. I don't know. Is there a link between histamine and ADHD? Probably. Don't know though. So these really grumpy, impatient days could be the start of histamine increasing? Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So Lisa, you get edema within 24 hours of taking in gluten. What's edema? It's inflammation. It's the inflammatory response. What triggers the inflammatory response? Histamine. So you've consumed gluten, which then triggers a histamine release, which then triggers the inflammatory response, which then triggers edema. And now you've got you've got all that histamine going on, then you absorb that histamine in your blood, and then it gets to your brain. Now the needle of the histamine is increasing in your brain, and you go from alert and focused, and you're like, wow, I feel good. And now you're starting to feel a little bit cranky, right? And if you have another sandwich with gluten and it's near your cycle, I don't want to go to lunch with you. I don't. So you gotta cut the gluten, as you know. You gotta support your estrogen levels and metabolize the estrogen. We'll talk about that someday here. It's actually not that hard. And but yeah, you're absolutely right. The histamine is a degree in which it is in your brain will cause issues. If you turn around a Sudafed, package at the pharmacy, it'll say warning, by taking Sudafed or Benadryl or whatever it is, this medication may cause drowsiness. Do not operate heavy machinery. Why? Because your histamine levels are lower in your brain. And what are those medications acting on? They're acting on this receptor right here, HRH1. Bam, they're hitting it. And that histamine hits that. And it doesn't matter how much histamine you have in your blood, because histamine has to bind to the receptor. And if it doesn't bind to the receptor, there's no trigger. So that's what those drugs work on. So antihistamines are simply blocking the action of histamine binding to the receptor. They are not metabolizing histamine. So the name histamine block, I don't like it. It's not a good name. Why is it not a good name? Because histamine block provides right here DAO. Okay, very little vitamin C, but some. But it's primarily DAO. So you're taking the DAO, this right here, and so it's actually metabolizing histamine and getting the histamine levels to a healthier level. And so calling it histamine block isn't good, but I didn't know what else to call it. And I'm not a marketing guy. I just design supplements and research. So no worries on the name. It's pronounced Kolohe. Kolohe. All right, that's cool. I'm covering my mouth so I don't spread stuff. I'm so ingrained to have to cover my mouth these days. Well, when you have an ineffective mask, I guess you don't need to cover your mouth, right? Oh, did I say ineffective? Sorry. So the blue circle, does that mean I have the gene, just not the SNP? Correct. If you have just the blue circle only and you don't see the bar, so what Lisa is talking about is this blue circle right here. I've made this one all dirty. Let me find a different slide. So you can see this blue circle right here. So just the blue circle says checked, nothing found. So we checked your DNA. We looked for genetic variations. We did not find genetic variations. So therefore, this is a very old test. We've since fixed this info bar. This is really old. Is histamine related to high homocysteine? It certainly can be. You have any recommendations for alternative products for people who can't swallow pills? Just open the capsule, sprinkle it on a bite of food. That simple. I gotta share my screen again. So yeah, just open the capsules. So like when you read the review, or maybe you weren't here. So this lady, Jen, her daughter takes half a capsule before food. Okay. And it's really helped reduce her red cheeks and headaches. So it doesn't matter if you can't swallow the capsule. You can just open it and put on a bite of food. I don't like mixing the supplement in a drink because it can get stuck on the side of the glass, and it's just a waste of money. You're not going to get it. So if you mix the DAO enzyme in a smoothie, you literally could have all your DAO on the side of the blender, or just stuck in the bottom. So if it's a really important supplement you're taking, don't add it to liquids. Don't add it to your smoothies. Take it on a bite. Like, get the bite of food ready on your spoon or your fork and just sprinkle the capsule on it and then eat it directly. Mixing in applesauce also works, a bite of applesauce. Lisa, oh, you made your husband happy. He doesn't want to go to lunch with me either. Oh, come on. No, I should have made your husband happy because I'm going to help you reduce your headaches and your migraines and your PMS symptoms, because you're going to support healthy histamine levels and you're going to be a pleasure to go to lunch with. T-Pro, you have high histamine problems. Should you stay away from oranges and mandarins? Yes. Doesn't citrus break up mucus when you're sick? I don't know about that concept. I would kind of call BS on that, because citrus is higher histamine levels, and higher histamine levels do what? Produce mucus. It might produce more mucus, which might make it feel like it's breaking it up. But I have a feeling that you're actually creating more mucus when you're eating more citrus. So if you want to support mucus breakup, you use supplements like N-acetylcysteine, NAC, or glutathione. But yeah, you don't want to be eating citrus. If you want to get vitamin C, then take a vitamin C supplement, or find other ways to increase vitamin C that are non-citrusy. Doesn't vitamin C knock down histamine? Where is it? So if you look here, vitamin C, here's vitamin C. It helps slow the release of histamine. Okay, so vitamin C helps slow the release of histamine. It doesn't metabolize it, it slows the release of it. This is all research, by the way. Yeah, Lisa, your HRH1 is also fast, just like me. Yeah, see, if you and I got together for lunch and you were close to your cycle and ate gluten, you'd be all grumpy, and especially if you had a glass of red wine, and I could be exposed to Wi-Fi all morning with my kids, and I could be having some avocados and gluten with you along with glass and wine, and we could just be sitting there yelling at each other. It'd be awesome. Or we could just take half a bottle of Histamine Block and everything would be fine. When you're in the middle of a migraine, what do? You take Histamine Block to prevent them, but not sure to take once it's started. I'm researching this. I've actually stopped a migraine in a kid. I would use PQQ for one. It's a really potent antioxidant. So I'd be using an antioxidant, but I'd also, so this is what I use, and I don't talk about this very much. So if you get headaches or migraines, so if you get migraines that typically start away from food, like you haven't eaten in a while, okay? You haven't eaten in a while, you start getting a migraine, you're like, oh damn, I forgot to eat. I gave this, he was, I think 10, and he started getting, he's like, oh, Ben, my vision is changing. Because this kid gets migraines all the time, and he comes over all the time at our house. In fact, I went skiing with him yesterday and his parents. He's a good kid. But he got migraines all the time. And so I gave him a quarter, or I gave him a quarter or a half of one of these. And because he hadn't eaten, and I was like, oh, because I know blood sugar, low blood sugar, hypoglycemia triggered migraines can happen. So I gave him a quarter to a half of one of these lozenges. I forget what it was. And it stopped his migraine from progressing, and it reversed it. It wasn't a full-blown migraine, but his vision was changing. So yeah, I was super proud of myself at that moment that I was like, oh, his blood sugar's dropping. So I'll get into this a whole nother day. I just want to answer your question. But NADH plus CoQ10 is what, NADH is what your body will make after you eat. So after you eat a meal, your body will convert the glucose into NADH, and it will take that NADH and it will help produce ATP. If you want to learn more, you click this great video from Ceylon, okay, and then you can just blow it up, okay. So it's she doesn't talk about migraines, I don't think, because that was new. So DAO, I don't know if it's in a special capsule or not, I forget. But if you cannot swallow a capsule and you need DAO, then you just open the capsule and you use it. Yes, some will die because you'll degrade it in the stomach acid. It will kill some of it. It'll lyse the proteins and destroy it, but some will get through and get in your small intestine. So, but if you can't swallow the capsule, then you have to open the capsule. Ideally, you swallow it with the capsule, right? But if you can't, then you open the capsule and you sprinkle it in a bite of food. Chloe, you sure hope you can just tolerate the histamine block, because histamine tolerance is getting worse and worse. Used to be a big fish eater. Yeah, so talk with your doctor with your gut, about your gut. Find a good doctor. Dr. Sarah Strong is in Hawaii. Sarah with an H and then Strong, like strong. I forget where she is in Hawaii, but she also does online consults and she's good with genetics as well. T-Pro, your strategy report says a green DAO and a slow ALDH. Do you still need histamine block or histamine X? If you are struggling with histamine-related symptoms, you need to be, resolving them regardless of your genetics. And we talked about that earlier, okay? So at the beginning of the video, we talked about person A and person B. And person B over here has a slower DAO and is slower ALDH genetically. And this person over here has a typical DAO. And this is my wife, person B, and this is me, person A, okay? Actually. And so, but I still had a dirty DAO, even though genetically I didn't. Epigenetically I did, because I had gut inflammation. I was drinking alcohol, and I had a bacteria in my gut called Blastocystis hominis, which was actually pumping out all sorts of histamine. So you can't tell what supplements you need based upon genetics alone. If you've ordered genetic tests and they say we can order your genetics, if you order your genetics, we can tell you what supplement you need. They're full of crap. And they're giving you something that you think you want, but it's actually very incorrect, because genetically you might be problematic, like my wife over here, but if she doesn't have any gut inflammation, metformin or alcohol or acetaldehyde, and she's fine, then even though this is slower, it doesn't mean that she actually needs to supplement with histamine block. You need to step back and say, what symptoms am I having that are associated with histamine? And if you know that, if you know what the symptoms are of this higher histamine levels, then you say, okay, yeah, I should probably consider histamine block right now. And especially if it's related to food, drink, or the microbiome, right here. Okay, where's my mouse? Where'd it go? I got two screens. Sometimes I lose it. Come on. I officially lost my mouse. Give me a second. What the hell? Oh, there it is. Oh, it's a tiny pointer. That's why. So DAO, outside, food, drink, and the microbiome. Okay. So DAO supports food, drink, and the microbiome related histamine. Your migraines start typically at night. Interesting. That's interesting. I'll have to think about that. You're in Cali, Chloe. All right. Lisa, you're looking for the NH video, but you can't find it. Just go to seekinghealth.com and go to the search bar and type NADH. So folks, if you, not all products have it, but this one does. So if you go to seekinghealth.com and then you just type in NADH, right? Oops, actually spell it right. Okay. Then you click it. And then if you see these little icons down here, okay, here's the video. And you start it there and it will play for you, okay? So she does a great job explaining it. Right, all. So I hope that helps you. If you're looking for the histamine block, or you struggle with migraines, or you're struggling with higher levels of histamine, then evaluate what's going on, step back in your life. And I would really start by reading Dirty Genes. This is the way to go. You can't out supplement a crappy lifestyle, crappy environment, crappy relationships, or crappy foods or drinks. You just can't. So Dirty Genes will help pinpoint that. And the chapter, what is it? Chapter 7. Okay. Chapter 7 is the DAO enzyme. Okay. The entire chapter dedicated to it. And page 115. And I'll show you. So DAO enzyme is a problem. Frankly, I have joint pain. You have arrhythmias. When you're pregnant, I could eat more foods than usual. I get side effects from metformin, NSAIDs, other meds. You have trouble falling or staying asleep. You have a blood pressure that's lower than 100/60. You struggle with asthma, exercise-induced asthma, or wheezing. You get frequent nosebleeds. Your eyes often itch. I often get heartburn or frequently need an antacid. I get itchy, sweaty feet. Can't tolerate chocolate, alcohol, shellfish. Skin issues, ringing in your ears, react to many foods, leaky gut, get diarrhea at times, frequently have to take antihistamines. So you check those boxes and you're like, damn, I just checked 15 out of those 20. You got a dirty DAO. And then I give you lifestyle, environmental factors, and so on. Look, those dryer sheets, those scented dryer sheets, those trigger histamine. So I'm more tolerant than those now than I used to be, because I'm starting to finally nail my histamine levels getting down. But it's been taking years and years and years. So I rarely take histamine block because I don't eat these types of foods. I don't drink alcohol very rarely. I just don't process it well. I don't eat gluten very rarely. Once, well, that was once, maybe once a year. And usually it's accidental. That time it was purposely. So I just avoid these things. I don't want my genes to work too hard. So I rarely use histamine block, but it's nice to have when I need it. And so, plus you feel like a hero when somebody comes over and they're like, oh, I just got exposed to something, somebody just had strawberries at our house accidentally. And they're like, I'm starting to get itchy. And I give them a couple of these and they feel better. So it's kind of cool. So anyway, give it a shot if you're curious, and it's always fun answering your questions. And I'll get back to talking about how to recover from this viral illness, other videos soon. I'm still researching heart-related problems. It is complicated, but I'll start nailing it down. It's awesome to see that those, if you haven't looked at the smell and taste videos, or the losing hair is still, I'm going to do another video on that one, blurry vision. So check out my videos from past lives and others, and you can learn a lot, and hopefully I'm helping you out. And click the subscribe button, click the bell so you get notified when I'm on live, and share this with friends and family too. Well, yeah, I really appreciate that. And I hope Seeking Health supplements are helping you as well. So take care, and always awesome to be with you. Take care.